So this trap is a very fun trap to play, and it comes out of the bishop's opening, which is the second move of bishop to c4. And just something standard looks like this. This is the bishop's opening, and usually move 4 black decides to play knight to a5 and eliminate this white bishop. So people have thought, well, why not move the knight to a5 right away? You can do it sooner, right? Don't you get the exact same result? Well, the answer is no. In this position, white ends up winning 2 pawns, forced. Bishop takes f7, winning the first pawn, king takes, and white will soon win back the knight. But there are a few things that black can do here. There's 3 moves, particularly. First one is g6, which obviously wins the pawn, wins back the knight. The next one is king to e7, which again wins the knight. White is up 2 pawns. So black might think, hey, I'm going to be greedy. Can I win the bishop here and keep my knight? If black decides to get a little greedy, he will most likely play king to e6. So this is a desperate effort to save the knight and be up in material. Queen to f5, check. And now, obviously, king to e7 would lose the knight, and the whole goal of bringing the king out here in the first place is worthless. So, black is still going to be a little greedy. Move his king to d6. And now f4. So the chase is on and white is in hot pursuit of that black king. So now the best reply here is actually king to c6. And let's take a look at queen to f6. So that allows for this check. Queen's forced to take, and the bishop pins the queen to the king, and white is now up a queen. So that is obviously not a good option. Queen to e8, one might say. Well, b4. Knight to c6, b5, the knight comes back. So what's the whole point here? Well, now, bishop to a3 check can happen all by forcing this knight to move. c5, take, check, king takes, and then queen takes f8, wins the bishop. So, the best move in this position, king to c6, trying to maintain his advantage. Queen now takes e5. So, obviously there is checkmate that is coming up, so black has to stop that. So d5 cuts off the knight's access to a5. So it also, however, helps black's king stay alive. So let's take a look at like b6. Well, obviously, checkmate. Anything else that would work, such as king to b6, and then knight to c3, bringing another knight into the game, c5, because obviously the checkmate threat on b5, b4, trying to eliminate that, knight to c6, knight to d5, check, king to a6, knight to c7, check, and king moves again, take the rook with check, and now white is up in material. So obviously that's not the best for black. So the best move here is d5. Alright, queen to c3 check. So now the queen can't really access the king on this side of the board, so queen comes back down to c3 check. The king moves to b6. Why would the king move back when the king came over here to save his knight? So the king, at this point, is probably going to continue to protect his knight. He made it this far. The only other move that protects the knight is b5 with the king. However, that allows for b4 preparing a4 check. So after something like bishop takes, a4 check, king moves back, queen wins the bishop, and now after something like c6 to stop the checkmate threat, knight to c3, and white is up a pawn, and this position is very impressive for white. It should be a white win. So king to b6, let's take a look at that. The next move is very quiet, but it's very clever. Bishop to d2. It forces the knight away. Otherwise, this knight will be won, and there's no piece that can come down and protect it. So the knight is forced back to c6. And this knight moving to c6 takes off an escape square for the king. So now the king is stuck in the center on the queen side of the board. Alright, queen to b3 check. The queen is coming to take advantage, and now king to c5. So king to a6 loses a little faster. You have queen to a4 check. King moves over. Take. At this point, the queen is probably going to take. And then you have bishop to e3 check. Knight comes down to d4. Knight to c3. The queen moves over to d7. Bishop takes. c5. Obviously, you cannot take, otherwise it's checkmate. So c5, king's trying to escape here. The king, oops, I made that wrong move. I meant to play queen to b4 check, king to a6, and bishop takes c5, and this position is brilliant for white. So back to the queen to b3. The right move was king to c5, and yet again, taking the pawn is the best move. And queen takes, offering a queen trade, which black is desperately hoping for. By the way, knight c to e7 leads to a forced loss after bishop to b4 check, king to b6, bishop to d6 check discovered. King moves over, queen to a3 check, king to b6, bishop to c5 check, king to b5, and can you find the checkmate? It is knight to c3 checkmate. So let's move back to this position. Queen takes now. And now after the queen takes, queen to a3 check. And this is a very nice skewer. It's going to win a bishop, you might think. King moves over. And now, instead of taking this bishop, bishop to e3 check. Actually, taking the bishop is good for black, because black will take on g2, black is going to win the rook, and suddenly black is back in the game. Alright, so bishop to e3, and after that, bishop to c5. So pretty much the only other move that you would think of at this point is knight to d4. And that loses after queen takes f8. So now queen takes f8 is good, because after the queen takes g2 now, bishop wins the knight with check, and this has a very decisive advantage for white. So, back to bishop to c5 to interpose, knight to c3. Obviously, this is a very bad position, and if you ever get this in a game, you should take a picture of it. I'm sure black is not happy at this point. Alright, after this, the queen now has to move, so queen to d6, obviously keeping the queen, protecting the bishop. Queen to b3, because the bishop is still pinned. Oops, I meant queen to b3. And now black is starting to run out of moves. Knight to b4, queen takes b4, king to a6, and finally, the queen comes to b5 to checkmate. After 18 moves, it was all because black messed up by playing the move knight to a5 on move 3 instead of move 4. So again, the proper play is knight to f6 moves 3. Then you can play knight to a5 safely and not have to worry about this sack of the bishop. Because now after king takes, the queen can't come in. So that's the way to stop the trap. I hope you never fall into the trap, but I hope that someone plays black against you, because this would be a fun position to play out in a real game. So there's the bishop trick. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.